And now to President Trump and a new story the New Yorker magazine published this morning. It details a Playboy model's allegation that she and Mr. Trump had an extramarital affair more than a decade ago. It also highlights extensive efforts, including contracts and payments, to keep stories out of the press. Ronan Farrow wrote the story, and he joins me again from New York. Ronan, welcome back to the program. There have been allegations out. Thank you for. There have been allegations out there about the president. He has denied all of them. How is your reporting different?
You know, I think that this is important on two levels. One is that there is now a proliferation of stories, Judy, and between them commonalities, shared locations, shared tactics. Karen McDougal, the individual described in this story, in her chronicle of this affair, talks about being offered money, something that appears in numerous stories, that after sex, she was offered a payment and declined that. She talks about the same locations that a lot of these affairs took place in. She talks about, in fact, some of that sexual activity taking place at shared events between her story and, for instance, the account of Stormy Daniels. So this provides corroboration for a number of these stories. But more important is the factor that you mentioned earlier, which is that this is also about a system that was in place, Judy, a way of silencing women through trusted intermediaries in the tabloid world, these secret payouts and secret meetings enforced by bodyguards. This was a well-oiled machine.
And explain how that worked. And it stems in part from the friendship, the close friendship the president has with a man named David Pecker, who is the head of a media organization that owns the National Enquirer. Is that right?
There's a term in the tabloid industry called catch and kill, which is when a company like AMI, this tabloid media company that you just referred to, acquires a story with the intention to bury it, not to run it. Now, it's important to note AMI had ample opportunity to comment on this story and has said, we didn't run this story after acquiring the rights to it because we didn't find it credible. But the accounts of numerous former AMI employees contradicts that. They say that this was a regular tactic used by David Pecker, the head of that organization that you just mentioned, and that in this case it was used to the benefit of his friend, Donald Trump.
And it's pretty clear that they didn't want this published. And I assume they were contacting you, doing whatever they could to prevent you from writing about it?
You know, I'll refer you to what we report in the piece, which certainly does suggest that they take a different view of events from the one that we report.
So why is Karen McDougal, the woman you talked about, why is she talking now?
You know, she remains terrified of legal retaliation. She was very careful about what she said. Her present-day on-the-record comments are largely about the business relationship with AMI because she is still afraid to talk about the underlying affair. She said, I don't know exactly what I can and can't say. There is a clause in this contract that could force her into a secret arbitration process, which she was very frightened of. But she said that over the past year, she's witnessed woman after woman come forward to describe the ways in which powerful men silence women with stories about them. And that while she was describing a consensual affair, she was inspired by those women to come forward to illustrate the costs of silence and perhaps inspire others to speak.
And where do you think this goes from here?
You know, I've been asked often, does a story like this have any chance of moving the needle, since we seem to be inundated with stories of this kind, of scandal, that have shaken, I think, people's confidence in a lot of institutions. It's not my job to say whether a story like this is capable of moving the needle, but I can certainly say that that last message from Karen McDougal, that signing up for silence in this way and assisting in hiding a story like this before an election can weigh heavily after the fact. And I certainly hope that, other women faced with that decision, and we know now that there were others after the Stormy Daniels revelations, weigh that lesson carefully.
Well, certainly a lot of detail here. And Ronan Farrow, we thank you very much for talking with us.
Thank you, Judy.